Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back, everyone. As we are in the middle of Masechet Sanhedrin, we're in the sixth parak, parak Nigmar Hadin, and we ended off last time talking about how you have to have different burial spots. You can't put Rishonim with Tzaddikim. You can't put Rishonim level 1 with Rishonim level 10. You have to put everybody in their own exact place in the cemetery. Today's Gemara really picks up on something entirely different. It's connected to our Mishnah because at the end of this whole topic, we're going to bring a raya, proof from our Mishnah, and that's why this Gemara is here. But it's really kind of off topic, but there's a lot of interesting information that's going to come out of this Gemara. So let us take a look. We're holding on in the art scroll at 47A-3. That's Mem Zayin Omid Aleph. And it's about 4 lines down from the wide lines in the Hebrew side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. Okay. Let's start. 47A-3 on the right column. New paragraph over there. The Gemara begins a new discussion. Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ula said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Achal chalev, a person ate chalev. Chalev is the forbidden fats of a animal. Okay, so we know there's shuman and there's chalev. There is the permissible fats, shuman. There's the forbidden fat, chalev. You're not allowed to eat chalev. It's considered an isser. So if a person ate chalev, now if he ate it on purpose, he gets karet, right? If he ate it by mistake, he has to bring a korban hatat. So, ahal chalev v'hifrish korban. The guy ate chalev by accident, b'shogeg, right? And now he has to bring a korban, so he didn't bring it yet. He separated the korban. He said, this animal is going to be the hatat, okay? And then what happens? V'himirdato. Then, after he separated the korban, he became a mumar. A mumar is somebody who abandons Judaism, right? He doesn't believe in Torah anymore. So he now abandoned Judaism. Now, what's the issue? He never brought up his korban yet. So can he bring the korban while he is a mumar, while he is an apostate? He's not believing in Judaism. He's not allowed to bring a korban. Rashi says, Rashi hoil v'nitcha hakarbon kishehemir dato the emekavlin carbon minamumarim. We don't take carbonos from a umumar. Keditania, as we learned, ameha aretz. Pasuk says from those of the nation, right? Prat mumar. That excludes the mumar that is not part of the nation anymore because he doesn't believe in it. And this is found in Masechet Chulin in the first parak. There it talks about that a mumar is not allowed to bring a carbon. We're going to see another pasuk later on that says Zevach Roshaim To'elah, that Hashem abhors. He doesn't want to see the korbanot of a evil person. So he's not allowed to bring it when he's a mumar. So at that time, that carbon that he separated got pushed away. It's not allowed to be brought up. What happens with Hazarbo? But now he comes back. It's about tshuva. He's no longer a mumar. He did tshuva. He realizes his mistake, and now he wants to come back into the fold. Can he now bring that korban that he separated before he became mumar, and now that he's after being a mumar, now he's a chosr tshuva? Can he bring it again? So says Rabbi Yochanan, Hoel v'nidha yidahe. No, there's a principle. Once a hatat, or once a korban, was pushed aside, right? You weren't allowed to bring it when he was a mumar. It remains pushed aside even afterwards when he came back and he was choser b'tshuva. So Rabbi Yochanan says that once a korban gets pushed off to the side, it remains pushed off forever. It is actually a machloket, not brought down over here, But there's a Rabbi Yochanan and Rav, and Rav says that's not true. Rav says there's no such thing as nitcha when it comes to a live animal, but balei chayim. Just because he separated it and now he can't bring it because it's a mumar doesn't mean he can't bring it afterwards because it's alive. And Rav says he could bring it afterwards. Argamor here doesn't bring Rav Shita. It's brought in different places. Just to know, as a sad, just to know the halacha is that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yochanan. The halacha is like Rav. That's the way the Rambam brings down the halacha. I would actually like to read the lashon of the Rambam, the language of the Rambam. I think it's quite interesting to just see it inside. So here is the Rambam. I'll read it to you. Misha Shosha Shagav Hiprish Chatato. Someone made a shaygeg and he separated his chatat. And he was made a mumar. He made himself a mumar, and then he came back. He was chazer b'tshuva. Or nishtatet. That's the next case. We didn't see it yet. Or the person became insane, and then he became normal. Even though in the meanwhile, while he was in mumar, while he was insane, while he was off the derech, he couldn't bring it. Now that he came back, it comes back alive. He's allowed to bring it. Because alive animals can't be pushed away. He can bring it himself. He can bring it himself. That is the Rambam. So Rambam learns like Rav, not like Rav Yochanan. But for our Gemara, to understand our Gemara, we have to understand Rav Yochanan. So right now, we have Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan says that if a carbon got pushed to the side because he was a mumar, he's not allowed to bring a carbon. Hashem says, I'll only take carbonas from those people who are in my nation. So now that he comes back, since he got pushed, it got pushed off. It stays pushed off. Maybe you can't bring something up to the king, right? Even if after you fix it, it's not right to bring it up. That's what someone wanted to taina in Shir. Anyway, that's Rabbi Yochanan. Then Itmar Nami, it was also said another statement in Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Yirmi, Amar Rabbi Bayu, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Achal chelev behifrish karban. A person ate chelev. Okay, same case. Behifrish karban, and he separated the karban. V'nishtata, but now he became insane. Okay. Now what's the issue when he became insane? So Rashi that we started, the Rashi over there says Shaitanami lav bar kaparahi. An insane person also cannot get kapara, cannot get atonement. Why? The kriv oto litzono kitiv. It says you have to bring it up to his will. And since he's a shoteh, since he is a insane person, he's not bardat, he doesn't have knowledge, he doesn't have yidi, he doesn't know what he's doing. So therefore, he cannot bring up a carbon. So now let's say v'chazer nishtatva, and now he became healed, right? His sanity came back. So can he bring the carbon or not? So hayil v'nitcha yidacher. So Yochanan says, no, he can't bring it because when he was insane, he wasn't allowed to bring it, so it was pushed aside. And whenever it's pushed aside, remains pushed aside, and you can't bring it. So Rabbi Yochanan brings the statement that once a carbon gets pushed to the side, it remains pushed aside forever in two cases. In the case of a mumar, someone who went off the derech, and in the case of an insane person who became insane and came back normal. Now, the Gemara wants to know, Utsricha, why we need both? Utsricha, and both are needed. The Iyashmin Kamaita, because if you were going to say only the first case, the case of the apostate, the case of the Mumar, Mishum the Ihu Dochan of Shea Beyadayim. I would have said, you know why? When you became a Mumar, you were not allowed to bring that carbon ever, even after your pleasure b'tshuva, because you yourself caused yourself to become a Mumar. You decided not to believe in Judaism anymore. But here, in the case of the insane person, I would think it just happened to him. It's like someone who just fell asleep, right? You're not allowed to bring a carbon when you're sleeping. You have to be up, but the carbon doesn't get pushed away to the side. Once you wake up, you can do it because it's a natural state of affairs. The same thing when someone gets sick. It's natural. You get sick, and maybe you can get healed. It's not something you do actively with your hands. So maybe there, I would say it doesn't get pushed off forever. Only if you did it with your hands, it gets pushed off forever. Therefore, I need that case. Now, if you would have taught me only the case of the insane person, I would have said, you know why over there it gets pushed off and stays pushed off forever, because it's not within his hands, it's not within his reach to come back. Meaning, you become insane, you can't just decide to be not insane, right? Either it's a miracle, or there's a drug, or something that it's something beyond your control. So maybe over there is not in your control. That's why it stays pushed off forever. But over here, in the case of the Mumar, where it's your choice to decide not to be an apostate anymore, you want to return to the faith, a malai, maybe it doesn't get pushed off forever because it's up to you. You can get back and you can bring it. So you learn from here, you need both. If I would have had one, I wouldn't have been able to learn of the other case. That's why Rabbi Yochanan had to say both. So what we come out with is that that you need both cases, the case of the Mumar and the case of the insane, to tell us that Rabbi Yochanan Shita, that once it gets pushed off, it stays pushed off forever. Because if you would have told me the Mumar was the Mumar because he chose it himself, that's why it gets pushed off and stays off forever. But the one who was insane didn't choose it himself. Maybe his carbon doesn't get pushed off forever. And if you would have told me just the carbon, the insane person was an insane person, yeah, because it's not in his hands to do anything about it. That's why it stays pushed off forever. But the Mumar is something in his hands to do. He can go back and because of true. Maybe it doesn't get pushed off forever. Therefore, both cases are needed to tell us that it stays pushed off forever. Okay, that was the Gemara. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Obviously, we already spoke about the Rambam. Rambam doesn't paskin this way. Those are the Rav, not Rabbi Yochanan. But now the Gemara wants to bring a Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef wants to bring a Braita that supports Rabbi Yochanan's statement. Amar Rav Yosef, Af Anon Nami Tanina. We also learned like this in a Braita. What happened? All right, so get ready for this portion. Hayuba Kachim. There was an Ir Hanidachat. Okay, so this is a city that became mostly serving Avodah Zarah. So now we have to kill them all out. We have to judge them. We kill them by the sword. The stuff that are found in the city have to be burnt and destroyed. So now the question is, what happens if you have in there stuff that belonged to the Beit HaMikdash? Someone separated something to be brought to the Beit HaMikdash. That's the question. How you have a kachim? There's kachim there. Kachim is meyach yamutu. The Gemara says, if it's kachim that's supposed to go up on the mizbeach, then you have to let it die. Why? So if you take a look at note 35, you're looking in the art scroll, 47A-4, he says the animals cannot be destroyed with the rest of the city because only the stuff that belong to the people need to be destroyed. But this is not belonging to the people because the guy, he was mekadesh it, he made it set holy for the Beit HaMikdash. So it's not the city's inhabitants, it doesn't belong to the city. Therefore, it cannot be burnt. It cannot be brought up to the altar. It cannot be brought up to the korban. Why? Because Hashem hates the korbanot of the wicked. Zevach Rashayim Toiva. It's an abomination. So you can't bring it up because of their karma. And it can't be sold because since it is a Zevach Rashayim, and if you sell it, it's the money belongs to Avodah Zarah. And we don't want to use it. It's not used. Something that it's something that is it's Zevach Rashayim. It's the sacrifices that are of the Rashayim, and it's a To'eva. So you can't do anything about it. You have to let that korban, that animal just die. Okay? Chayva kachim. So if there was kachim, so if it's kachim mizbeach, stuff that were supposed to be brought up on the mizbeach yamutu, you let it die. Kachim bedekabayit, you padu. But if someone gets something to the Beit HaMikdash, not not for the Mizbeach, but rather for the upkeep of the Beit HaMikdash, for the upkeep. That means he gave them either money that they can use, or he gave them an item that they can either use the item, or they can sell that item and use the money from that item for the Beit HaMikdash's needs and expenses or whatever. So that's called Bedek Habayit. So Gemara says, Kacheh Bedek Habayit, Yipadu. You can redeem it. Why is that? So explains Rashi, right? This can be found in note 36 in the article. It says, Kacheh Bedek Habayit could be sold because what? It's not a zevach, but it wasn't a mizbeach. It wasn't something that had to be brought up on the mizbeach. It wasn't a carbon. Zevach risha'im to'iva. A sacrifice of the evil people is an abomination. But this is not a sacrifice. This is something that was donated to the Beit HaMikdash, not as a sacrifice. Therefore, it's not considered to'iva, and therefore you can sell it and you can use that money. Okay, so that is what Rabbi Yosef brings down as a braita. And now his proof. And we asked about this ruling. Why we must let the kacheh mizbeach stuff that were supposed to be on the mizbeach? Why do we have to let them die? Kiven the iktul. Once we kill them, once the people here in Dachat get killed, avalu kapara. It will be within a kapara. They're killing by bedin. Should be a kapara for them. They got an atonement, and now they're not Risha'im anymore. So now you don't have the problem of Zevach Risha'im anymore because they're not Risha'im. They've been killed. And now bring them up. What's the reason why we're not bringing them up after we kill them? Why are we not bringing them up on the Mizbeach as a carbon after we kill them? Because is it not because we say that once it's pushed off, it stays pushed off forever. So Yosef wants to bring a proof to Rabbi Yochanan's shita was once it gets pushed off the carbon, it stays pushed off forever. Rabbi Yosef said, "I'll bring you a proof because we have by Erni Dachat, by Kachim Mizbeach. Something we brought up in the Mizbeach, we say we have to let it die. Why we have to let it die? Once we kill the evil people, they get a kapara. Now that they got a kapara, they're not evil anymore. And now that they're not evil, you should be able to bring up the carbon. Why don't we bring up the carbon? Because once it was pushed off, it stays pushed off. So a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. So Amrullah Abaya says Rabbi Yosef, whoa. Misa varts make me talk risha havale kapara. Make me talk risha lo havale kapara. Abaya says, 1 second, where did you learn this? That if someone is killed by Beitin, if someone is killed for his wickedness, that is considered a kapara. No. Someone who dies while he's still wicked, there is no kapara. Why are you thinking that these people, the Erni Dachat, that were killed, that they got a kapara, and the reason why they can't bring up their karbanos after they've been killed is because once it's pushed, it stays pushed off forever? That's not true. The reason why they can't bring it up is because they're still Risha'im, because being killed does not bring you a kapara. And he said, I'll bring you proof. The Tanir Rav Shemaiah. Rav Shemaiah taught, as we were going on to 47A-5, okay, we know that a kohen is not allowed to be mitame for the dead, except the regular kohen, except for the 7 close relatives, meaning his mother, his father, his wife, his children, his brother, sister's not married, right? So he could be mitame for them. Now, Rav Shemaiah taught that if the parents or any of his siblings, whoever he's sitting for, if they went off the derech and not part of the Torah, then not part of the Jewish people, then you're not allowed to be mitame for them. Why? Because it says be'amam, in your nation. But see, what do we see? The kohen is not allowed to defile himself for his parents even after they die. I thought you said that when they die, it's a kapara. And if it's a kapara, then they're not Risha'im anymore. And if they're not Risha'im, he could be mitame to them. But the fact that you're saying that he can't proves that when someone dies as a Rasha, he remains a Rasha, and therefore there's no kapara there. And therefore the children cannot be mitame for him because they're Kohanim, and it has to only be parents who are part of the Amav, part of the nation. So, so this is Abaya. Abaya is saying this to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef, you wanted to prove Rabbi Yochanan correct, that once it gets pushed, it gets pushed off forever, because by the Aaron Nidachat, once you kill them, they get a kapara, but you can't bring it because it was pushed off already. That's not true. The reason why you can't bring the carbon by the Aaron Nidachat is because once you kill them, they're killed while they were evil, and killing does not bring them a kapara. They're still evil, and that's why you can't bring it, because it's a zevach reshaim to'iva. Hashem doesn't want korbanot of the evil. So Amalei Rava says to Abaya, Rava now replies to Abaya's challenge, and he says, Mi kadamet neherag mitoch risho, but make mitoch risho, kivan dechi orcha kamet, la hava le kapara. Neherag mitoch risho, kivan alav ki orcha mat, la hava le kapara. Rava says, hold on, Abaya, you're saying that when you die as a Rasha, you continue being a Rasha. Yes, you're right. That's because you died naturally. If you die naturally and you're a Rasha, then you remain a Rasha even after you're dead. But if you're killed unnaturally, I mean, you didn't die by your natural causes, you're killed by Beitin or whatever, then you get atonement. That is a kapara. So they did get a kapara by the Irani Dachai because they were killed by Bet. And the reason why we don't bring up their korbanot after they're dead, even though they got a kapara, is because once it's pushed, it remains pushed. It has nothing to do with the fact that they remain Risha'im, because no, they were killed by Bet. And when you kill by Bet, then you get a kapara. If you just die by yourself, you don't get. That's what Rava wants to say. Teda, I know this, because it says in Tehillim, Mizmor le'asaf, song to Asaf, Elohim, Bawa Goim Benachalatecha, Timu Etecha Kochecha, Natanu Dilat Adecha, Ma'achal Le'ova Shamayim, Baser Hasidecha, Lahayato Aretz. Okay, so the Tehillim says that the Goyim came into the Beit HaMikdash, they made everything tamei, they gave the corpse of your servants as food for the birds of the sky, and the flesh of the Hasidim to the beasts of the earth. My avadecha, my hasidecha. What is an Eved and what is a Hasid? Lav hasidecha, hasidecha mamash. When it says Hasid, it means a Hasid, a real Hasid, someone who never made a sin, someone who was always truthful to Hashem. Avadecha, when it says avadecha, you know what avadecha means? Someone who was originally guilty of a capital crime. Then they killed him, and now he's called your servant since he got kapara when he was killed. So this pasuk proves that someone who gets killed, he gets kapara. So the people in the Aaron Nidachat who were killed, they get kapara. The reason why you can't bring it of the korbanot afterwards, because once it's pushed off forever. Not that they remain Risha'im, because you do get. Here's the pasuk, avadecha. Abaya says, hold on, that pasuk that says avadecha, the ones who were killed, you have to read that whole parak up to Tehillim. The beginning of the parak, as you said, it says, "Ba'u goyim b'nachalatecha, mika medemet." Are you comparing harugei malchut laharugei beit din? It's talking about people who were killed by the enemies. People who are killed by the enemies, they get kapara. But those who are killed by beit din do not get. Because they were killed not according to justice, they were just killed by the invading soldiers. That's why there's going to be a kavanah for them. But those who were killed by the betin, since they were killed according to the just law, there is not going to be a kapara. So they're arguing now, is it a kaparat when you're killed or you're not? So it seems Abaya says that being killed by Betin does not bring you a kaparat. Does not bring you kaparat. Teda, and know this, the Tnin, because we learned in our Mishnah, this is why the whole Gemara is brought, When you kill the guy who gets skila, right, and he's dead, you don't bury him in his plot of his ancestors. You have to bury them in the Betin cemetery. And if you would say being killed gets you kapara, let him be buried right away in his plot. Must be he doesn't get kapara when he's killed. Mita ukpura be'inan. Rather, in order to get kapara, you need to be both dead and buried. And then you can start getting some form of kapara. So comes out that what it seems to be Mahoka the Bayan Rava, the person gets atonement when he is killed. Rava says, yes, you get Avadecha, therefore you get. And Abaye says, no, being killed only by outside enemies, not by Betin, gives you kapara when you're killed. But by Betin, it has to be both you get killed and then you get buried. And then that starts giving you some form of atonement to that person who got killed and buried. They were not allowed to mourn for the person that was killed by Betin. They would be onanin. For grieving is only in the heart. And if you would say that once you bury him, kapara, they would get kapara, leave below. Right? Our Mishnah said that a person was killed by Betin, you're not allowed to sit as an avel for him. Right? But why not? The Gemara now saying, once you kill him and bury him, he's right away becomes kapara. So let them do avilut. The Gemara says, no. You don't just get atonement when you get buried. Rather, the flesh needs to start to decompose. Daikinami, and see this in our Mishnah, Diktani, as it says, nit akel abasar. Once the body has decomposed, then you collect the bones. And then you bury them in the right place. Shemami, now we learn from here that it's not just being buried that gives kapara, but rather to be killed, buried, and then you have to start to be decomposed. And that brings a kapara. Okay. Rav Ashi Omar, Rav Ashi says, Avelut me'ematai ka mathalat. When does Avelut start? Misitimat hagolel. So this is the truth. Misitimat hagolel. This is the halacha that once they put the body in the ground and they cover it, that's when Avelut starts. If a person is being sent off to Israel to be buried, so then the people who remain, as soon as it gets on the plane and the plane is already taking off, then those people who are here and are not going to Israel with the body, that's for them to consider the closing of the casket, so to speak, because they're not going to be able to follow the dead anymore, and they start Avelut. So the question is, Avelut starts from when you close the casket, when you put it into the ground. But when does kapara starts? Once it starts to feel the pain of the grave, once it starts to decompose. Now, since the Avelut was pushed off from the start, before he got kapara, and you had to wait until his body starts to decay in order for him to be not a Russia anymore. So now maybe you could sit Avelut, but once it was pushed off, once the Avelut was pushed off, it remains pushed off. We'll take a look in Rashi in a moment. Let's finish up the topic. If that's the case, why does the Mishnah say I have to wait till his body decomposes? Once his body starts to decompose, then he's already got a kapara. I can switch him out and put him into his regular spot. Why am I waiting until he completely decomposes? If this is what we're saying now, that he gets atonement as soon as he starts to decompose. So Gemara says, Mishum Deloy Afshar. It's not possible otherwise. Meaning, it's very hard to practically move a body that's halfway decomposed or partially decomposed. It's much easier to let the body decompose completely and then to take the bones and move the bones. That's why the Mishnah recommends that way. Now, the Gemara says the reason why we can't sit Avilut for a person who's killed by Beit Din because he's a Rasha, right? And he doesn't get kapara until later on. So his body starts to decompose. Since he gets it later on, once it's pushed, the Avilut remains pushed. Rashi has a problem with this because Rashi says, hold on, what about Yom Tov? Right? There's a halacha that look at Rashi. It also gets pushed off further. Even though when we say on the holiday, right? What do we do on the holiday? If a person dies on the regal, he gets pushed off. Right? Tanan monat sheba achar regal. You count 7 after the holiday. Meaning we don't say, since you couldn't sit Avelut on Yom Tov, you get pushed it off. Yidachut stays pushed off forever. How come we don't say that? Mar says, Hatam lo itchu lehu legamre. Sher askerabim noeg beregel shmenachemin oto kol haregel. Kedemino hatam kol shohu mishum iskerabim ein haregel mafsikan. So Rashi says it's a difference because by Yom Tov, even though he cannot sit Avelut, still people can come and give him consolation. You can come and say, oh, feel bad. Oh, you can do these type of things. So it's even though he doesn't have Avilut, and there's also Avilut B'Tzina, private Avilut does take place. The public Avilut does not. So there's some sort of Iskei Rabbim. Right? Other Farshim says the same thing with a Hatan. If Hatan was by a chuppah, and then someone died that he needs to sit Shiva for. He doesn't sit Shiva during his Sheva Brachot, his 7 days. He doesn't sit. And when will he sit? He'll sit afterwards, after the Sheva Brachot. But why? If you got pushed, you should be pushed off forever. No, it's the same idea. There's Avilut B'Tzina. There's the Rabbim that can get involved. There are parts of Avilut that do come into play. But here, by the Rasha, when he's killed by the Beit Din, nothing is allowed to be done at all in the beginning. Nothing at all. And therefore, since nothing was there, it was pushed off completely. And once it gets pushed off, completely pushed off, it remains pushed off forever. And you don't sit as an avel for someone who's killed by the Beit Din. Okay? So that is the first real piece of Gemara for today. Let's move on to our second piece, unless there's any questions. Okay?
One question.
Sure.
Based on procedure, before basically make death penalty goes into effect, do we force the client to do teshuvah, or it's not in the procedure?
No, it was. We learned it in the Mishnah. We make them make vidui.
So why then Abaye arguing this? If we force them to do the vidui, that automatically means.
You ask a good question. You ask a very good question. You're saying by the Irani Dachat, they do make tshuva before they're killed. So the Rishonim get into that. That's a great question. The Rishonim get into that, and it must be that because you're saying like, how could he still be a Rasha if he said vidui before we killed him? That's the halacha. We make them say vidui before they get killed by Beit Din. Perhaps maybe this is an exception. Maybe he didn't get killed. Maybe he didn't make vidui and they still killed him. Or he didn't have a chance to, or it was someone else other than Beit Din that killed him. I'm not sure. But you do ask a good question. Or it just may be, even with his vidui, still not enough of a kapara until his body starts to get decomposed. Perhaps he needs that much in order for the kapara to come in. But it's a good question. Is the Mefarshim do get into that?
So the second question would be, if the person did not do teshuvah, still the atonement goes into effect once the body starts to decompose?
Apparently so. Apparently decomposition seems to be somewhat of a big form of kapara.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems so. Tzarech Ian, these are two very good questions. Tzarech Ian. look further into this, but that's what it seems to be, right? The way we read the Gemara seems to be he didn't do a kapara beforehand, he didn't do Vita beforehand, and then he died, and then he's considered a rasha until his body starts to decompose, and once it decomposes, then he's not considered a rasha anymore. Yeah, and that's another thing. Not everybody is zocha to be buried, right? Some people don't get even a chance to be buried, and for their body to get decomposed. So it's a zechut in a sense to let the body get decomposed in order to bring a complete atonement. Okay, fine. We're going to come on to our next topic for today. Let's take a look. Okay, so this idea here is once something is set aside to be used in burial, it becomes also to use for other things. All right, we're not going to see the source for it here today. It's going to be later on in our Gemara, and it's based on comparing burial to Egla Arufa, where you're not allowed to use the things after doing the Egla Arufa, whatever. So we see that stuff that are used for burial are not allowed to be used for other items. So this is the story. Kivrei derav havu shkole minei afra leishta bat yoma. Okay, Rav was buried, and he was buried somewhere. And when people got sick with what they want to say a one-day-old fever, that's the Gemara says leishta bat yoma. They want to say it's malaria. The people would get very bad fever. A one-day fever was very bad. So they would go to Rav's grave, take some earth from the grave sites, and then they would use that in medicine for him. I don't know exactly how they used it, but that's what they did. So Atu Amru Shmuel, they came and they told Shmuel they're taking the dirt from Rav's grave. It's aser, belongs to the dead. So Amru Lahu Yaut Avdin, they're doing good. Karka Olamhu, because earth is just karka. It's just earth. But karka olam enoneseret, and soil of the earth cannot become forbidden. So Shmuel said they can take as much as they want because it does not become forbidden. Does not become aser. How do we know? Because it says they took the afar, the ashes of the shayr tree that they burned, al kever b'nei ha'am, they threw it on the b'nei ha'am. Now, Makish, the pasuk compares kever b'nei ha'am, the kevarim, la'avodat the kochavim, to avodah zara, the offer of the avodah zara. What does this mean? Ma'awal kochavim b'mechubar lo mitzara. Same way by avodah zara, when the avodah zara is connected to the ground, when it's a natural phenomenon, you do not have to destroy it. It says, Asher atem yorshim otam Elohim al harim haramim. Al harim Elohim below harim Elohim. If a guy or anybody goes and he serves a mountain as an avodah zara, you have to destroy that mountain? No, you don't have to destroy that mountain. The pasuk says, destroy the idols that are on the mountains, not the mountains that are idols. So what do we learn from there? That avodah zara, you cannot make a natural thing in avodah zara and then say you have to destroy it, because that, what the pasuk says, you destroy the idol on the mountains and not the mountains itself. And we're comparing avodah zara to kvarim, same idea. The earth that is part of the earth, that is not considered aser and does not belong to the dead body. Rather, it remains earth and can never become aser. Hachinami, so too by the grave, b'mechubar loy mitasar. It does not become aser when it's connected to the ground. So the earth in the grave is not considered aser, and that's why the people were allowed to take earth from Rav's grave and use it in their medicinal purposes. Now, what about the earth that is dug up and then the body's put in and then the earth is put back on top? What about that earth? Is that earth considered a natural phenomenon, and therefore it cannot get tameh, it cannot belong to the dead body, and it can't get aser? Or do we say that since it was detached from the ground and then put back, then now it could become usher. And the Ramah is of the opinion that it can become usher, that the earth that was removed from the grave site and then put back in to bury the body, it becomes usher because it's not mechubar, it's not connected. It was already talosh, already was separated. Therefore, it's going to be usher to use that. So far, what we came out with was something that's connected to the ground remains mutar and it's not usher in a grave. So, Meitva, they asked the question: Hachutzev kever la'aviv, person who dug out a grave for his father, and then he buried his father somewhere else. He can never be buried in that grave. The son cannot bury himself in that grave. You see that the grave becomes restricted. But if you're saying that the earth of the grave is mutar, then how can it become also to the son? We're not dealing with a kever in the ground, rather be kever binyan. Instead of digging out his place, he built like a mausoleum, like out of stones. He built a place to bury. And since he built it, yes, they become usher and they become part of the dead. It's property to become usher to everyone else to use. So Tashma, come and learn. Another question. Person just dug a grave. It's mutar ba'ana. You're allowed to use it. Hittel nefel asur ba'ana. But if you put in it even a nefel, even a stillborn, it becomes asur. Why does it become asur? If it's in the ground is mutar. Sigmar says, we're not dealing with a buried, a dug up grave. We're dealing with a building grave. And since it's built, it does become us. It's not the ground. Karka doesn't become us. The building could. Tashma nimtza kavarot. There were three types of kivarot. Kever nimtza, kever hayidua, kever mazik derabim. Kever nimtza. What's a kever nimtza? This is a guy who owns a field. One day, going through his field, and he finds a dead body buried there. So mutter lifnoto. He's allowed to move the body. No one asked him permission to bury it there. He doesn't know how it ended up here. He's allowed to move the body. Pino, once he moves it, makamo tahor, the place that the body was, is tar. Umuter bahana, and you're allowed to use it. Kever, how you do it. But if it's a kever that he allowed someone to be buried there, he's also lifnoto. You're not allowed to move it. Pino, if you did move it, mikamotame, the place is tame, but asur bahana, and it's asur in hana. Why is it asur bahana? That's going to be the question, because if it's in the ground, then the ground should be mutter. Ground karka doesn't get asur. So next case, kever mazik derabim. If you had a grave in the middle of the rishus rabim, mutter lifnosar, you're allowed to move it. Pino, if you moved it, malkum tar, the place is tar. But asur bahana, but you're not allowed to use that place for your hana. But why is it asur bahana? If it's in the earth, karka's oilim, and karka cannot become asur. So how it becomes asur? So where it says, hachinami bekever binyan. Oh, again, we're not talking about digging graves, talking about mausoleums, stuff that are built up, stones, wood, whatever they use to build a structure. And that becomes asur. Gemara then ends off a kever and nimtza mutar lifnoso. If you find a kever, are you really allowed to move the body? You didn't get permission and you found him there. Are you allowed to move it? Dilma makes mitzvah. Who maybe it was a mit mitzvah. Umet mitzvah kanavim komo. The mit mitzvah halacha is he acquires the space that he's in, so you're not allowed to move him. How can you say if you find a dead body in your field, you don't know who buried him there, that you're allowed to move it? Maybe it's a mit mitzvah, where it says shani mit mitzvah the kala etle. Can't be a mit mitzvah, because if it was a mit mitzvah, people would have talked about it. God would have gone around. People would have talked about it, because mit mitzvah is a big mitzvah. Take care of. So everybody would have found out. The information would have gone out. The fact that you found a dead body and nobody knows where it came from, what it is, must be it's not a mitzvah, and therefore you would be allowed to move it. Okay, and we'll end here for today. Any questions, Rabotai?